Record better audio anywhere with Motive Digital Microphones from Shure. Easy-to-use options like the MV88 plug directly into your phone or computer and include a free app. Create studio-quality sound for podcasts, music, and videos. Visit Shure.com to learn more.
The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliate stations coast to coast present
Baseball, Beer, and Barbecue.
No-hitter for Arrieta.
Discussing baseball, good drinks, and food.
So,
Or clear for a minute so I can write down the damn time.
It just got weird.
With Ted Hicks.
Everybody wants to be Bartolo.
Todd Vandenberg.
The handsomest man on the entire goddamn tour.
And Lee Vowell.
Folks, look around. Anyone who's not singing in the choruses is a racist.
Every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. on the Happy Hour Network.
And welcome to Baseball Beer and Barbecue with Ted, Todd, and Lee. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on the Twitter at Baseball Beer BBQ. We will talk at the bottom of the hour with Patrick Reddington of SB Nation's Washington National site, Federal Baseball. Also, we'd like to thank I-95 Sports Network, Mile High Radio, RF Sports, XRP Radio, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Arena Sports Network, and Todd. Who else do we have to thank?
I would like to thank two very special people in my life. I would like to thank CJ Computers NC at CJ Computers NC on the Twitter, 919-653-8496, Computer Repair NC for all of your computer repair needs. And if you've decided to just give up because you're sick and tired of fixing your electronics, you can drown your sorrows with Cappy's original wicked hot sauce available on eBay. It is delicious, it is delightful, and it will remove all sensation from your mouth.
As it should. So, usually Ted reads it, but that little, who else we have to thank? Whoa, that's loud. Hello, that's loud. Not sure who that is, but that's awesome, Ted. So, that's loud too. So, anyway, it's been a long time since we played a whole, or just talked baseball for a whole show, and this show's just for an hour so people can get on their merry way and go to Hempstead. So, anyway, let's start off with the playoffs, because why would we talk regular season? No, seriously. So let's start with the Rangers and Blue Jays. Of course, the Blue Jays are up in the series 11-7. It's a throwback series. First one to 39 wins. But the Blue Jays are now, they go on the road. They take the first two in the series. Of course, it's baseball, so the Rangers could easily come back and win 3 straight against the Blue Jays to take the series. But if you're the Rangers, well, before we get into that, what are your guys' thoughts on the series so far?
It's a spanking. Ted, that was my fault.
They are who we thought they were, or are.
Which
Blue
one?
Jays, come on.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yeah. Go ahead, Todd.
No, seriously, we've talked a lot about run differential all season long, and how, the Cubs, they scored like 800 runs more than the opposition. And, for the most part, it holds true. You look at the teams that made the playoffs, all of them scored a lot more runs than they gave up, except for the Rangers. And the Rangers now look less like their record, and they look like their run differential. I don't remember what they wound up specifically at the end of the season, but I know with like a game or two left, they'd scored 13 more than they'd given up. Basically, They should have been 82-80. And that's what they look like right now. All those weaknesses are being exposed by the Blue Jays. And absolutely, they could come back and win three straight because it's baseball, it's sports. But nobody thinks that's going to happen. I mean, I bet some of the Rangers don't even think that's going to happen at this point.
Yeah, maybe. It's hard to, when you, being on a team, it's like you always think you're going to win, no matter what. I would hope
Sure.
Anyway. But is it really just a matter that, against the guy who's probably the greatest pitcher, maybe of the 21st century, J.A. Happ, was that just a bad matchup going up against J.A. Happ? The guy won like 37 games this season. I mean, he's truly a Hall of Fame pitcher.
Well, when we get to another series, we'll see that another pitcher who won a whole lot of games this season kind of reverted to form. So, yeah, obviously you're joking for those 3 people out there who don't realize that. But I just think the Rangers are showing, like you said, they are who we thought they were, and they look more like the team they really are, rather than the team that inexplicably won a lot more games than they should have.
Yeah. So and really on the opposite side of that, the Blue Jays made the playoffs, but it's still one of those things where the Blue Jays, they lost David Price. Of course, I don't know in the postseason. David Price is now 0-8, which is interesting.
Right.
Never won a postseason game.
Ugh.
But it's one of those things where they did lose David Price, but still really the core is still there. The same team that was really, really good last year, and maybe because I thought they kind of in the postseason last year did not meet expectations. Where maybe this year this team will because of the greatness of J.A. Happ. But
if I can
go ahead, yeah.
I was going to say, if I can throw in, one of the big reasons they're facing the Rangers is because one of the guys with a reputation as the smartest managers in baseball opted to not use, historically perhaps possibly the best closer in baseball ever, and thought, I'll save him. So,
Well, let's give Buck Showalter a break. Let's give him a break. He deserves it. But, I mean, he really doesn't because he blew it.
He blew it.
Yeah. But, I mean, the game was tied forever, right? Extra innings.
Right, it's tied forever. But look at the managers who brought in their closers in the 8th. Nobody brings in a closer in the 8th anymore. And yes, they were protecting leads. I get that, and it was tied. But at some point, and I don't care if Jimenez had pitched well in September. They were saying in September his ERA was like 3-something. It was much better than his season. That's still 6 times higher than your closer who you left on the bench, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you thinking? I mean, at that point, I'm sorry. Bring in the closer. It's what are you saving him for the playoffs that you're not going to make? Come on, dude.
Well, I'm bringing his closer in the 8th. Never happens. Kelly Jansen had a 5-out save yesterday. So, but it's one of those things where and then we'll get into the Dodgers in just a minute. But even bringing Jansen, of course, I'm a huge Dodgers fan, but bringing Jansen in the 8th, I was thinking, man, and this isn't the case with the Orioles because they would have had days off. But I'm thinking, okay, you got to win this game 1, but he's going to throw a lot of pitches here. Is that going to hurt him tomorrow if they get in the chance? It's interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think we all agree that Britton should have been pitched in that game at some point. But even if it's tied, what happens if he comes in and he pitches the 12th and the 13th? And it's still tied, and then 18th. I mean, we're even talking about that. Does it matter? You know what I'm saying? So I mean,
it doesn't matter then. But at least he used them then.
I guess.
This is a different
it wasn't
situation
a save
because
opportunity. It's not like he put somebody in instead of him. I mean, it was still tied.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of overblown because, he's thinking maybe Jimenez. I can get some if this game's going to go a while because you don't know when you're going to be Britton in.
Yeah, but it's not just Jansen Osuna pitched. It had 5 outs too. You do what you got to do.
But I guess.
Win the game.
But I mean, but you don't know. I guess my point is, it's not like, and I agree with everybody what they're saying, but it's still kind of he's getting a lot of pushback from a situation which was never a save opportunity. So I think that was
right.
That's one of those things where it's like, okay, we didn't put him in, we could have saved the game. And I mean, he has to play to how long this game might go. So if you put Jimenez into the game and he pitches 3 innings, great. I mean, somebody eventually is going to give up a run. But, I mean, what happens if you throw Britton out there for 2 innings and it's still tied? Now you've blown your closer. So, I mean, the argument is, you know what I'm saying? So
I know what you're saying, but the difference is this is a 1-game playoff as opposed to a 5-game playoff.
But it's still a tie game. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's the Game 7 of the World Series. If it's you can't. I'm going to put him in. We're going to win the next 2 innings. You can't think that. I mean, that's not what's going to happen necessarily.
Yeah, but you're also throwing out a guy who's 6 times more likely to give up the losing run for you than the guy you could have put in.
Clayton Kershaw is going to be more apt to give up a run than Zach Britton. In this case.
That's right. Which is why you use Zach Britton when you've got him.
Yeah,
it wasn't a save opportunity.
Again, if you throw him for 2 innings and the game's still tied, then you've blown Britton. It doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? I think he was trying to play to the strength.
I understand.
Of
but now it doesn't matter at all.
Well, it may not have.
Now they're sitting at home.
Yeah, but again, Britton could have thrown 2 innings and then they bring him in and he gives up a run. I just don't think that's necessarily the reason they lost the game was because they didn't pitch Britton. I mean, the game was still
it's not the only reason. The reason they lost the game is they couldn't score against 1,000 Blue Jays pitchers either. But to me, it's like, dude, you got to do something. It makes no sense to me to leave your best weapon. It wasn't a save opportunity, but it was a win opportunity.
Well, if they had scored a run, but they still didn't score. I mean, like you said, they didn't score any runs. I mean, they would still have to score. It wasn't that. I guess they didn't. I guess the difference to me is that they didn't lose the game because they didn't. They just didn't win the game. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, it's much worse if the situation is like, well, they lost because they didn't. No, they didn't lose because they didn't push Britain. They just didn't win because they didn't. You know what I'm saying? So there were so many other things that could happen in that. Well, I mean, what happened?
Here's one last question. When the guy gives up 2 straight hits, why are you not making a move then?
Right, but I mean, they could be pushed back on. Oh, I should have pushed Britton anyway. But I mean, but the opposite of that is what's happened to the art of bunting. I mean, other than pitchers in the National League are trying to bunt, you need one run. There isn't.
Is there bunting in baseball anymore?
One run. Manufacture a run. It's one run in that situation, and it's just like, I guess that's the only thing that's really bothered me about baseball so far in the postseason is it's like all these games. Well, unless you're the Indians and Red Sox, all these games are tight. I mean, even the Giants yesterday. I mean, they lost on a home run. How many home runs have we seen in the postseason, by the way? But they lost on a home run in the 8th inning by Javier Baez. Just manufacture a run at some point in the game. I mean, it's hard to do, but you should at least put yourself in a position to score runs, even if it's just one run, right? Because one run might win a game in the playoffs.
Old school baseball would have won several games at this point, and which again that goes back to the thing about this is the last thing I'm saying about Britton, but you got two managers who
can't bunt. I know what you're going to say. He's the best bunter in the world. That's what he's going to. I'm just joking.
He is. He bunts at 150, like 1.500. He's amazing.
His ops bunting is well over 3,000. It's crazy. Because he's only
the
got
Willie
the one
Mays
triple.
Aikens of bunting.
He's always a sacrifice, so he's only got the one official at bat. So anyway, I have no idea. Oh, wow. So Zach Britton, the show is now about Zach Britton, which makes sense. But Ted, you kind of had the opposite feel. Ted, if you're still there. Ted is gone quiet.
Ted gave up.
Ted's argue bored about the Zach Britton. Actually, he's on mute. I don't know how you got on mute, Ted. Did you mute yourself?
No, I did not.
I haven't been in the studio.
Wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Sorry.
Ted Hicks
is not available.
I swear I didn't mute you. I was looking at the scores in a different window altogether, so I'm not sure what happened. But Ted, no, that's actually the honest truth. So Ted, you might have the opposite feeling though as far as the closer thing. I mean, Familia, you thought the issue was he pitched, but he pitched way too much in the regular season, right?
For the record, Ted does matter. Hashtag.
Ted,
my goodness.
Todd's going to tweet that right now. I think actually it's
Patrick stands, throws down the middle. It's intercepted one more time. Richard Sherman gets up. He's got it at the 40.
So, oh my God. Yes. I think it's just the opposite. I just want to, in regards to the other conversation, I mean, this doesn't really apply, but I'm going to say, how many times during Mariano's great run did Torrey or Girardi pitch him in the 8th inning? And he was required to record a 6-out save or a 5-out save and a back-to-back. Come on, stop. You use your closer in those type of situations. But with the Mets, it's something I'm going to sound like I'm contradicting myself because for the Mets, they use Familia about, seriously, when I text you to yesterday, I said they used him about 187 times last season.
Yeah.
His utilization was at about 150%. You know, how else do you get 51 saves?
Yep.
the one thing we've seen with Jerry's is in that big spot, and that's why on New York Talk Radio they were referencing Armando Benitez. I said, "Oh, stop." There's nothing worse than sour New York fans after their favorite team have lost, and then they call up the four-letter network in New York or WFAN and just start to unload on everyone. Like, it's like friendly fire. Here's a guy who did what he needed to do, but in that big moment, he's kind of antsy. And we saw that in the World Series last year, not once, but twice. And then, we saw it in with the Mets on Wednesday night. So, hey, no preconceived notions. I was picking the Giants to win because Bumgarner is Bumgarner. Sorry. Especially in that space and that specific type of game, that's what you expect from him. And I'll leave it there.
Well, I just think, again, the difference between bringing Mariano in for those 5 or 6 outs is if they used Britton in the situation the same way, it wasn't the same situation because it wouldn't have been a safe situation. So, Buck Showalter is who I'm voting for president, obviously, at this point, so I might as well go ahead and say that. I think he's probably a Republican for all I know. So, anyway, moving on to the Cubs and Giants. John Lester is obviously he's not Madison Bumgarner because I'm not sure if anybody in the history of baseball is Bumgarner at this point, and I'm not even joking when it gets to the postseason. But it's John Lester's not far off, to give Murph props, although Lester blew it in the wild card game when he was with the A's. But again, he pitched 8 innings, shutout ball, great pitching. I mean, that was the pitching matchup instead of Kershaw and Scherzer yesterday. Cueto and Lester, phenomenal pitching, and one bad pitch lost the game. 1-0 Cubs, a home run by Baez in the 8th inning, and then Chapman comes in, gives up a hit, but he shuts the door. And so, what did you guys think about the Cubs and Giants yesterday?
Brutal, unwatchable. Couldn't stand it. It was terrible.
Too low scoring.
Yeah, I prefer to see softball games. And to be honest, because I've been busy, because things have been happening down here, I only caught part of it. But this is what baseball is about. And let me say right now, I would be thrilled to have Buck Showalter manage my team. I think he made a mistake.
Who wouldn't?
But that's one mistake. It's not like this guy's an idiot.
Well, exactly. They have Madden.
Well,
I'm just joking.
As a Marlins fan, I'd be happy to have him. As a Tigers fan, more to the point, I'd be happy to have him. So, if I'm the Cubs, I'm not making moves. That's the guy I want. But Showalter's a great manager. Great manager.
Yeah.
Showalter will get you. He will get you right there to where you need to be, and he gets fired, and then whomever just Weekend at Bernie person you can throw in there will win the World Series.
Wow. Okay, that was a Ted shot at Lou Piniella. Whoa. Stand back, Ted. So anyway, just kidding. So, but yeah, yesterday was great. Cubs Giants, of course. Again, Baez's home run. Did you guys see? I don't know if you saw the home run, but did you see the highlight of the home run? And if you did you take any offense? Would you have taken any offense if you were a Giants fan by him? Because it wasn't like, it was a home run, but it was just barely over the wall. There was a chance it could have not gone over the wall. Did you find any offense by him just kind of standing there for like a second before he started running?
Nah.
No, come on, these are people. Exactly.
He's pimping it.
Hey, look at the career path this guy has had. He's earned the right to do it a little bit, seriously. So, good on him. And besides, it makes the next game more exciting because when are they going to throw at him if he gets in the game again?
Well, let me ask you this, though. Because the ball barely went out. So he stands there for half a second. It's a scoreless game. If you're a Cubs fan, would you have been upset? Because he should have been running. And if he didn't, what are the chances it bounces off the wall because he didn't start running and he doesn't get to second base and he's not in scoring position for somebody to try and knock him in?
That's a good point, and I'm sure, as you had mentioned, Madden is a fairly decent manager. He probably, after the euphoria settled down, and for Madden, that was probably a second because this guy is beyond smart. I'm sure he's had a conversation with him about that. It was like, dude, you need to be in scoring position if that doesn't go over the wall. I mean, you can't just take it for granted. I mean, you're not Encarnacion. I mean, you're not watching your third deck blast, dude. So that's a good point. Really good point.
And then the Indians and the Red Sox, of course, the Indians now have a 2-0 lead over the Red Sox. Just destroyed the Red Sox. I mean, it was over. Literally, it was over in the second inning because it was 4-0. It was a really strange home run by Chisenhall to the first home run the Indians had because it was. It almost had to be reviewed because it hit that plexiglass and it was like, oh, it's a home run. And so that was interesting. But if you're the Red Sox, I mean, you're down 2-0. Again, these shortened series make it obviously a lot more stressful for a team that's down 2-0. Whereas if you get down 2-0 in a best of 7, not nearly as stressful. Best of 5, you have to win the next 3, which they can do. But the Indians, and I talk about another team that's just extremely well managed. It's in the postseason, especially. It's hard to imagine, is it not, that the Indians, led by Terry Francona, would find a way to lose 3 straight games. What do you think?
Let me ask you a quick question, which is a side note. Who's the worst manager in your mind that's in these playoffs? There's a lot of freaking solid managers. And you mentioned Francona. We talked about. I mean, these guys are sharp. And I'll throw Showalter in there because like you said, if they had been able to score a run, there's a reason.
Let me just jump in for just one second.
These teams are in there.
Just 1 second, because I think that's an excellent point about the managers. I also think just as far as the players involved, you see a lot of the same players, not even on the same team, like David Ross of the Cubs. You see a lot of them who have changed teams. Not only are the managers good, and this is kind of an overused word, but a lot of these players are just winners. They know how to win games, and they end up on different teams to make the playoffs.
Okay.
Is that right? So I think those go hand in hand, really. Winning players, literally, quote unquote, winning players and managers.
There's a lot of high baseball IQ out there for sure. You're right. Absolutely.
Anyway, I interrupted you. You were going to say the Indians and
No, I was just asking. No, I was just asking you about the thing about the managers. But as far as Indians and Red Sox, Hanram has guaranteed that they will be back in Cleveland. He didn't guarantee they'd win when they get back to Cleveland, but he guaranteed they'd be back in Cleveland. So, I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see them win 2 at home. It's a great team. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah. Hey, are the winter meetings in Cleveland this year or something? I'm just kidding. So, but and it's the other part of that is that, of course, David Ortiz is in his final season. We're assuming, because he said it was, and he had the farewell tour and everything else. But he had a phenomenal season so far in these playoffs. He stunk. I mean, he had 1 double, but I think he's 1 of 7 so far.
1 for 8.
1 for 8. Okay. He was yeah, that's right. So I'm bad at math. That's why I don't manage. So what are you guys' thoughts on if David Ortiz is not able to really do anything, because he's usually been a great postseason player, but what kind of 180 would that be, like Georgia Tennessee football game kind of, where it's like you had a great regular season and then you're leaving and don't do anything in the playoffs? What kind of taste would that leave in your mouth if you were David Ortiz?
He's not going to be happy, but to be fair to him, who else on the Red Sox is doing anything so far?
Yes.
He's part of the crowd. I think he'll bounce back because he's David Ortiz, like you said. I mean, this guy's been a beast in the playoffs, and I don't really care who wins between the two teams. I'd kind of rather see Cleveland because it's been longer. I mean, how cool! That's another great story, but. It could be, like I've said, I really hope he retires after the season, because if he comes back next year, then he'll probably have the typical final season. 13 homers, hits 260,
Right.
He can go out on a historic note, the best final season ever. It's like, dude, you've got to retire after this. And like he said, why wouldn't he? He said, it's not the games, it's the prep for the games that wears him down at this point. It's like, retire, man. Go out on a high note. And, unfortunately, if he winds up going 0 for 19 for the playoffs, that would suck. well, he won't go 0 for 19 for the playoffs, but maybe he could. But if he has a bad final playoff, so what? It doesn't tarnish his legacy a bit, but I think he'll bounce back. I mean, I can't imagine him not bouncing back. Of course, the rest of the team has to, too. I mean, he can't do it by himself. He's not Baez.
Todd, he's going to Canton in 5 years, right?
I don't know.
Will he? Now, if it weren't for certain substances that people worry about, yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting. Do you think let's get rid of the PED discussion. Do you think he's a first ballot? I don't mean. Well, let me rephrase that. Do you think he would get in on a first ballot? Let's put it that way. I'm not sure if he would. Just because the voters are so,
wonky. They are fickle, but they like him. They like him, and I think that says a lot. Because
that's
like
a huge
player.
Plus. Absolutely, that's a big
one
point.
reason Bonds and Clemens don't get a lot of votes is because they get fired after one season of being batting coach. No, is because they
were douchey. They were douchey.
Yes, very much so.
I mean, who would you rather, have a conversation with, Mike Piazza or Barry Bonds? I mean,
right.
So
they were the Donald Trump of baseball.
Well, yeah, in a way. I mean, it's actually an apt phrase. One thing I'll say before we get into the Dodgers and Nationals, before we're joined by Patrick Reddington of Federal Baseball, I got to throw out props for Major League Baseball. 3 of those games were in the day yesterday. And we had one truly night game.
Right.
And that
Good
kind of
point.
was like,
I didn't think about that.
Yeah. I mean, because, you think, they're going to have 2 competing games in prime time, but they didn't. They tried to space them out as much as you could for 4 games in one day. But they were all really daytime starts. So I thought that was fantastic of baseball because you get a lot more people, I'm assuming, a lot more people viewing will be interested to see what the ratings actually are. But kids coming home from school, man, there's baseball on. There's Rick Monday's going to hit a home run against the Expos. I mean, that kind of thing, and that's my childhood. Watching Rick Monday hit that home run against the Expos. But if that had happened in prime time, like most sports want you to watch, I would never have seen that. That would never have stuck with me and made me probably even more of a baseball fan. I think baseball needs to do that more, to be honest.
Daytime on a weekday. That is huge. Exactly. Right. I didn't think about that.
And finally, the Dodgers and Nationals, and we'll get into a little bit more, but Kershaw and Scherzer were both – Kershaw missed – it's funny because if you look at their stats, now Kershaw threw a ton of pitches for his little time. He's 5 innings, 7 strikeouts, 1 walk, and Scherzer didn't walk anybody. I think he had 6 strikeouts, 5 or 6 strikeouts. But if you look at their raw numbers, yes.
Lee, how many pitches did Kershaw throw before he left?
103, I think.
Yeah, it was up there. I mean, he was missing. At first inning, it was funny because I texted you guys about Harold Baines saying, "Oh, he's off. He's laboring." He wasn't laboring the first inning, but he labored every inning after that. It's almost like he came out and I'm going to strike out everybody, which is not what Kershaw does. But he threw so many fastballs in that first inning. It was like, this is interesting. Doesn't seem like he's pitching for the long term like Kershaw usually does. But he missed his spots high, low, in the strike zone. He threw a lot of strikes, but he was missing in the strike zone. And he's lucky he only gave up those 3 runs. But Scherzer, when he threw it in the strike zone, I mean, Corey Seager just hit a bomb. And that's Corey Seager, so that's okay. And Justin Turner, thank you, Ted. I mean, Justin Turner's turned into a really, really good player. And you could almost make the argument that shortstop, third base combination for the Dodgers is as good as any combination in baseball. I mean, those guys are very good defensive and offensive players. And it was just interesting because once the bullpens came in, wrong what?
Not better than Jose Reyes and David Wright back in 2006.
Oh, I'm saying now. I'm saying right now.
Wrong.
There's a soundbite for the ages. Wrong.
What about Mike Schmidt and whoever played shortstop next to him?
That's true.
That's true. That doesn't matter who was a shortstop.
Oh my goodness.
No, but when the bullpens came in and shut the door, and Kenley Jansen came in for a really long save opportunity. Got the last 5 outs. I talk about cutters. This guy, I don't know if you watch the Dodgers very much, but Kenley Jansen's cutter is just it's a little bit less than Mariano, but I've never seen those 2 guys with better cutters than those 2 guys. Jansen basically just throws his cutter all the time too, and it's just like when it's on, and it is most of the time, he's unhittable as well. But it's just funny because it was a big build-up. You got Kershaw and Scherzer, which, again, normally on paper and actually in the game, that's a great pitching matchup. Both those guys were not good. They weren't really sharp at all during the game. And, again, home runs. Corey Seager hit that one first pitch he ever saw in postseason baseball, crushed it to center field. Justin Turner had that home run. So, it's 4-0 Dodgers. The Nationals come back and score 3. So the Dodgers end up winning 4-3. But, man, that was a tight game. Again, if you manufacture a run, if you're the Nationals, or heck, even if you're the Dodgers, because they had opportunities, you put a little bit of space between the Nationals or the Nationals tie the game. Sorry, Todd. What were you going to say?
A quick correction. Kershaw threw 101 pitches. Jansen threw 27 pitches, 20 for strikes. It was like, oh, my God, that's sick.
Wow.
Yeah.
20 and 27 for strikes.
Yeah, and Kershaw, it was funny because a lot of those, he ended up throwing more balls later, but he was throwing so many strikes that it was, and Reynolds was like, you need to be more aggressive, against, because you're going to get that first pitch. Yeah, but that's late in the game. Late in the game for him, quote unquote, is when he was throwing those, when he was really laboring. He wasn't sharp, and he got that last out, but even that was like, man, if he doesn't get this out, Dodgers going to lose this game. So, Ted, tell us about our great guest.
We welcome back to the show Patrick Reddington, Minister of Peace for Federal Baseball, SB Nation's national site. Patrick, thanks for being on with us again.
How you guys doing?
Pretty good. So, Patrick, before we get to the Nationals, what's your biggest surprises, good or bad, in the playoffs so far?
I barely even watched it, other than the Nationals, to be honest with you. But I got to think the Toronto Blue Jays getting up 2-0 on the Texas Rangers is a bit of a surprise. On top of the fact that there haven't been any fights in that series yet, I think that's the most shocking thing so far.
Hey, so how do you see the Giants-Cubs playing out?
What did it end up being, a 1-0 game last night in the Cubs' favor? I really don't see the Cubs losing to anyone at this point. It's going to be a tough matchup for anyone who goes up against them. I went into this kind of thinking that, they've had such good luck this year, and for a Cubs team to have this kind of luck, you'd kind of expect it to all fall apart at some point. But so far, they just look like a juggernaut. They've been dominant from day one this season and really kept it up so far. So it's going to take a lot of luck on someone's hands or a complete collapse like we've seen from them before for the Cubs to blow this one. But it looks like they're off to a good start after last night's win, and I just don't know if the San Francisco Giants can handle that lineup.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Steve Bartman's able to get seats for the playoffs. So, the Nationals, getting back to your team, they've had so many important players get injured this season. Obviously, they got Turner, who stepped it up. He's going to be a really good player. And they still easily won the National League East. Did this surprise you, and why or why not?
One of my big concerns going into this was the fact that they did kind of cruise against the NL East. They were dominant. I think they were 51-25 against NL East opponents. They had the most wins within a division in the majors. And you have Strasburg and Wilson Ramos go down at the end of the season. It's just brutal for the Nationals. Dusty Baker was talking about deciding on the Game 2 starter, and as he put it, if Steven was around, there wouldn't have been any decision. Essentially, he would have been going today. And as comfortable as I am with Tanner Roark on the mound, it's just a different animal when you have Steven Strasburg out there. He threw a bullpen yesterday, but he's not close to starting in a major league game right now. So they're turning to Roark. He's had a great season. You trust him, but missing Strasburg, and then you see what missing Wilson Ramos does to the Nationals lineup. They got a good game from Pedro Severino last night filling in behind the plate, but the bottom of that lineup is just different. One of our writers, Dave Nichols, last night pointed out when you take Ramos out, you move Zimmerman and Espinoza up, and the bottom third of that lineup just gets a lot less powerful and imposing without those two guys there. So it's kind of disappointing to have the season end this way and go into the postseason without Strasburg and Ramos in there, but it happens to everybody. You just have to get past it and hope that the other kids step up and make a difference.
Yeah, and then last night's game, of course, Max Scherzer and Clayton Kershaw were far from their best. Obviously, Kershaw threw a ton of pitches. Scherzer, when he was in the strike zone, he pitched well, but he gave up some bombs off just throwing it right over the middle. Is it more just a matter of each team's approach and that they're well coached in how to go about attacking opposing hitting in the postseason, or was it just a matter of the starting pitchers, they're just off their game?
Yeah, I think Kershaw was definitely not at his best, but the fact that, 1 month back after 2 months off with the herniated disc, he was able to do what he did is still impressive. I think that's the most pitches he's thrown since June. He went out there and just put together a good start when he didn't have his best stuff and held the Nats to 3 runs on, I think, 5 or 6 hits on the night. So Scherzer, the home run ball has just been his problem all season, and he got him again last night. Dusty Baker talked afterwards about it. Just everyone knows that he throws a lot of strikes and pounds the zone, so they were jumping on first pitches knowing he's trying to get ahead in the count, and he hung up a few. One home run was a fastball. The other 2 were hanging slider and hanging curve that were just up in the zone, and the fastball was belt high outside too. So there were just a few mistake pitches and an otherwise pretty decent start by Scherzer. He limited them after the 3rd inning and put together a solid start, but the home run ball just continues to kill him and did again last night. So it's kind of tough to watch something be a problem all season and then not expect it to be a problem in the postseason, and did come back to haunt him.
Yeah, Patrick, like you said, the face-off between the aces really kind of fizzled. But what did you think of the performance of both bullpens, and do you think the bullpens are going to be key in this series?
Yeah, especially the next couple starts. I mean, Roark, you expect to get a good 6 or 7 innings from him. He does that pretty much every time out. I hope I didn't just jinx him with that. But after that, the Nationals in particular are going with Gio Gonzalez and Joe Ross. And Joe Ross hasn't built up a whole lot of arm strength since he came back from a shoulder injury. And Gio Gonzalez is just a question mark every time he goes out there, really. You hope that the Dodgers' struggles against left-handers continue, but the Nationals have basically one long man in the pen right now, and Reynaldo Lopez. The danger of having either Gio Gonzalez or Joe Ross go short is just, it could put the Nationals in a really bad situation going forward. And the Dodgers' bullpen was just dominant last night. I really liked Dave Roberts' aggressiveness and throwing Kenley Jansen out there for a 5-out save. I think it was the 2nd time he's done that all season, basically, but he knew it was the time to go with your, that big arm in the back of the bullpen, and Jansen came up really big for them and shut them down, and Nationals really just couldn't muster anything against the Dodgers bullpen at all.
I'm going to go a little bit off the diamond with this one. That was the first time 2 African-American managers have ever faced off against each other in playoffs. How important do you think that is?
Yeah, both Dave Roberts and Dusty Baker addressed that last night. It is extremely important. Just any so-called minority, I hate that phrase, but pardon me for using it, managers in the game, just to have them there and represented, and why you have to show people at this point that any minority manager can do what they're able to do is ridiculous, but there obviously should be more minority representation in the league, and they both acknowledged that it was significant regardless of anything else, and we're happy to be going out there against one another. Dusty Baker had a lot of good things to say about Dave Roberts, and even though Dave Roberts was a little bit perturbed that Dusty Baker tried to put a little bug in the umpire's ears about Clayton Kershaw balking with runners on, he still had a lot of respect for Dusty Baker.
Hey, that's baseball. You're supposed to do that. You mentioned Tanner Roark. You said he's not quite ready for this big stage. So we'll flip the question. How do you think the Nationals should attack Rich Hill, and then again, how should the Dodgers go after Roark?
You just got to be patient with Roark starting there. He's just a bulldog, basically. He goes out there and pounds the zone. He's got the sinker, so you have to wait until he actually leaves something up in the zone, which he didn't do much this year. And I might have painted myself as a little bit less enthusiastic about Roark than I am. I just think he's had a great season, and the way he bounced back from being moved to the bullpen is just really huge. I mean, he had a lost year basically last year where they moved him to the pen and didn't find a role for him. So to come back and win a career-high 16 games, regardless of what you think of the win as a measurement of success, he just came out there and put together a really solid season and didn't lose anything from where he was in 2014 when he won 15. So the Nationals, it's going to be tense tonight. Rich Hill is just a great comeback story, the way he worked his way back into a spot in the rotation, and now is starting in Game 2 when he was basically lost for a couple of years there. And part of it was with the Nationals, too. They signed him and had him at AAA for a while. He talked about that yesterday and how much he liked being part of the organization, even though it didn't work out. So the Nationals are just going to have to try to calm those nerves and not be over aggressive with him and wait for something that they can hit. But the pressure of falling behind, possibly 2-0, is going to be tough on the Nationals hitters.
Ted is supposed to be talking, but Ted doesn't want to talk right now, I guess.
I'm here. I want to talk about Roy Hobbs. Well, we call him Roy Hobbs in New York last year during the postseason run. Daniel Murphy. I mean, there's been so much talk about a strain in the buttocks, but what's your take on Daniel Murphy during this playoff run? Do you expect something as magical as last year, or does he come back to earth?
It's hard to expect him to do the same thing he did last year, because that was just an unbelievable run he went on. But the fact that he continued it pretty much all season this year and is in line, as a potential NL MVP if it wasn't for all those Cubs, is just impressive, the way he picked it up and really didn't let down from what he did in the postseason last year. I think he basically had 2+ weeks off, though, dealing with that buttock strain. And I can't, as good as he is and as much as Dusty Baker assures us that his swing is simple and they're not concerned about it, just the worst possible time to have 2 weeks off and not see live pitching. And they had the built-in 4 days off after the regular season ended, but still, he just hasn't seen live pitching in so long that it's hard to imagine him being as sharp as he was last October going forward in this one. But he just continues to impress. He's went out there last night. The base running gaffe when he got caught stealing was really a kind of rough blow for the Nationals in the loss. But I'm just impressed with his determination and his consistency all season long. So I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up good numbers going forward, depending on how deep the Nationals go. But expecting what he did last October, I think is a bit much, in spite of the fact that he did pretty much keep it up all year.
Hey Ted, let me jump in for just a second. Yeah, I meant to ask you about that steal attempt, because I know previously they'd had the double steal that really paid off for the Nationals, and then when Murphy got thrown out at second, I mean that it didn't change the game, but it really cut down a lot of momentum that the Nationals had. Do you think that was that a called steal, and why would you do it in that situation, especially since he has the muscle strain?
It was not a called steal. Dusty Baker clarified that afterwards. He said that his veterans have a green light to go whenever they think they can steal it. They both said that Pedro Baez, who was on the mound at the time, is slow to the plate, but he's also a hard thrower, which kind of makes up for some of the slowness in his delivery. So Murphy acknowledged that it was a mistake. I think his quote, to paraphrase, was basically, it's a mistake if you go and don't make it, and if you make it, it's great. But I questioned the decision there. I was hoping it wasn't Dusty Baker calling for it or a missed sign with Anthony Rendon potentially, trying to hit and run there and missing a sign, but it wasn't the case. And they just said that Daniel Murphy thought he had a chance there to put himself in scoring position. And I trust Anthony Rendon as a hitter and his ability to make contact. He's been lining balls all over the yard all year. So to kind of take the bat out of his hand, he popped up right afterwards and ended the inning there. But I would have preferred to hit away with Rendon and see if he could move Murphy up rather than trying to do it, especially considering he's been out with a strain to the back of his leg. And he looked good going to second. He got caught, obviously, so it didn't end up well. But I was a little surprised he went and did that on his own.
Okay, I'll close you out here. I appreciate Patrick you being on, and you've been on with us several times. We always really appreciate it, and I normally would say I hope the Nationals do well, but I'm like the biggest Dodgers fan for the last 45 years of my life, but I wish, if they do beat the Dodgers, that they go on and do great things, because I was always told, hey, if a team that beats you, you should hope that they do well, because then you lost to the best. So thanks again for being on. I hope the series is entertaining. Last night was a little bit too entertaining almost, but hopefully I always say hopefully every game's a blowout, because at least, either way, you didn't have to lose sleep over one or two moves. So any final words? Where can people find your stuff on social media and find your writings? And again, thank you for being on.
Yeah, it's federalbaseball.com, at federalbaseball on the Twitter, and however Facebook's URLs work, we're on there as well, and we're building up a nice audience on there. And we do a post-game show most nights too, Nats Nightly, which we send out on Twitter. So I appreciate you guys having me on, and I'll talk to you again soon, I hope.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
All right.
So, and here's one interesting. one interesting stat that I don't know if you guys saw last night was with Daniel Murphy, which is the fact that he had, I think this season he had faced about 460, I think it was 468-ish fastballs, high fastballs, 95 or more that were high up in the zone. He had swung and missed at 10 of them. 10. Just 10. That's crazy. So, I mean, it's Daniel Murphy is one of these players who seems to have, and until he loses some bat speed, obviously, but his hand-eye coordination is crazy. But if he starts to lose some bat speed, obviously, it's going to affect him as a hitter. But it seems to be the kind of guy who has taught himself to hit the fastball, focus on the fastball first, kind of old school, focus on the fastball first and then adjust. But if you can hit a fastball, it's 95 plus, high up in the zone, and you're a left-hander, I mean, you're going to have good power numbers. You're going to have a great batting average, right?
You're going to be Babe Ruth.
Well, Babe Ruth.
Not really. No, you're not going to be Babe Ruth. You're not going to.
You'll at least be Roy Hobbs.
At least.
Very, very true. So, anyway, that's our show. Well, it was a really quick show because we just wanted to come on, jump on, and talk about baseball for once. Hopefully, it'll be an entertaining week, and we'll be back next Saturday. But you guys, what shows we got coming up on Happy Hour Network this week? You got Cinema Savants tomorrow, Todd?
Cinema Savants. I've had too much beer this morning. Cinema Savants tomorrow at 6 p.m. And a shout out to my broadcasting guru, Rob Steele, who hates sports and still listened to the show today because he just sent me a couple texts. So thanks for that, Rob. That was pretty cool. Yeah, we'll talk about lots of things. Mainly those things would be movies because it's Cinema Savants. But yeah, 6 o'clock tomorrow.
And that can also be tweeted out from @SavantCinema about the show. People can find that.
Actually, already has been.
I thought it was Cinema Savant.
It was Savant Cinema. I didn't see anything about last week's show. Maybe they had the week off.
It's Cinema Savants. It's Cinema Savants. We've changed. No, it's at Cinema Savants because certain people didn't think it was available and it was. But it's at Cinema Savants.
Is it really?
Yeah, sir. Anyway.
That other one is no longer. Oh, okay, I do.
See,
at Cinema Savants.
Certain people named Ted actually pay attention to their broadcasting partner.
Well, let me see. The last tweet I see from @Cinema Savants is from the 26th of September.
You're drunk. You're drunk, sir.
@Cinema Savants. Two guys. It's about Luke Cage. Netflix releases second Luke Cage trailer, September 26th, 2016. That's the last tweet I see from @Cinema Savants.
What's the last tweet do you see from Savant Cinema?
I don't know. That's what I have on my phone now. Is @Cinema Savants.
Okay.
This has been the Cinema Savants promo show, brought to you by Baseball Beer and Barbecue.
So, and I didn't change that. Yeah, well, yeah. It's a. So do you? If anybody sees @Savant Cinema and sees that, then maybe we have some kind of issue with the synchronization of Twitter. Yeah, I don't see. I mean, all I see is. Do you guys see something from later than September 26th?
Hang on.
I got log
This is an employment evaluation of Todd Vandenberg to see if need to get your numbers up on the Twitter. Yeah, I don't know. @Cinema Savants. Yeah, I guess I don't know why. Maybe it wasn't available before.
I do. Lee, you tweeted Savant Cinema on September 15th. I tweeted Savant Cinema on September 21st, but on September 26th.
The last tweet from @Cinema Savants is the 26th, right?
Yes.
And it's October 8th. So maybe there's no show. Maybe they don't have a show anymore.
One month away from Election Day.
Yeah, it's true. So anyway, @Cinema Savants will tweet you where the show's going to be. And Todd will not be getting a raise this week. So what else do we have going on this week?
I love Cinema Savants.
It's a good show. It's better than when I'm not on it, definitely. And I mean that honestly. Rob and Todd do a much better job than I did.
It needs to be a Rob-only show. Then it'll be awesome. So
anyway, late night parents. We're not positive we're having a show. We might because it's a bye week, so it might be a bye week off for the show too.
I thought you would have jumped on to brag about beating the Jets.
Nah, I just get. I'm not. My name doesn't start with M and end in H. But no, I just I give you guys a good-natured thing by throwing out the little snippets of stuff. But it is what it is. It's 4 games into the season. I feel like the Seahawks are lucky to be 3-1. They could have easily lost to the Dolphins to start the season, and maybe they should have.
They should.
So they should. I mean, they really should have. They should. If they caught the ball.
Sucked.
Well, if he can still caught the ball. Seriously, I mean that's the difference in the game, really. So, anywho, so late night parent Wednesday,
8:00. Be here. We're gonna have a great show. We're gonna talk.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
Oh, no. I wasn't done before because I wanted to make a comment about Daniel Murphy. You will listen to every damn word I have to say. The pain in the buttocks. The strain in the buttocks.
Wow.
Okay, what was that?
What was that? That was a train going by in the background.
Oh my goodness.
That wasn't me. That was not me.
We're on Wednesday at 8. Stay tuned.
Okay. Who has a train in the background? Seriously.
There are no trains in Florida, so it wasn't me.
I do. It's me. It's the security alarm system. I wanted it to sound like a train. See? Someone just rang the doorbell.
Oh, that's interesting. So
mind.
I think the show's lost its mind. We're totally off the rails at this point. So and one last thing. That's the very last thing. Of course, this part from Tim Kaine and the vice presidential debate.
6 years ago, I looked at a picture of the world's greatest newspapermen. I felt like a kid in front of a candy store. Well, tonight, 6 years later, I got my candy, all of it.
So that was his first statement. That's still such a great thing to play for Tim Kaine. I have no idea why. But, yeah. And then we have MMA show, right, on Monday. Is this still happening?
Yes.
And then
to the best of my knowledge, no problem with there. Jed Meshew will be on with Fist Fight Club. Fist Fight Fight Club. Fist Fight Fight Club with Jed Meshew.
And then we have yes.
Can I just jump in and say that was someone ringing my doorbell for my son to come outside and play.
Aww.
That's good, right?
Don't you remember that happening like 30 years ago? No, maybe 35 years ago?
I was not one of the 1%er like you. I didn't have a doorbell. They had to knock on the...
And I was a shut-in. No one came to play with me, so... that's awesome for you, Ted.
I'm done.
Mr. Big Shot.
No, we had that's a good point. Actually, my best friend growing up was named Chris. He didn't even knock. He just came into the house. So, because he was like my brother, so it was like he would just come in. Nobody cared.
Right.
But yeah, everybody else knocked on the back door of the house that I grew up in. So, yeah. But I remember that. Well, we're getting way off here, but I don't know what you feel about your neighborhood, Ted, and what your neighborhood is like. But where I grew up, it was just basically I grew up on like a cul-de-sac almost. It was a circular cul-de-sac. Great place for kids because we were almost like our own little street. So it was fantastic. But I don't see kids out there playing like
Not
they
anymore.
used to.
Not anymore. Not like how we used to.
Yeah.
We would wake up on a Saturday morning and go outside and knock on each other's doors, and run away from the door and then come back later and ring the doorbell again. But that stuff doesn't happen anymore. All right, we're totally off the rails. Sorry about that.
We are. Yeah. I apologize. I apologize for Ted talking about his Richie neighborhood and the doorbells.
Seriously.
We'd ring the doorbell, and then the butler would come down and say, "Young Mr. Hicks, you have a playmate here who wants to play with you." So I have no idea. what that is. So anyway, and then we have NBA's show. The last 15 minutes has just somehow been talking about other shows on the network. So we have the NBA show that's come back. It was on the 6th. I'm not sure if that's live. And then we have Seahawks show, and then it's live. Awesome. And baseball show. So yeah, I mean we be full up on the shows, So
what day is the open day?
What day is what?
What day?
Oh, the open day. It's
Friday.
EJ has committed to returning to the network to do a live show.
Nice. I thought he had other things happening where it wouldn't allow him to do.
He does, but we don't have a date yet. I mean, we have a date on the other things, but we don't have a date yet on his return.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. So anyway, that's our show. Who wants to have the final word?
You should. The last word would lead Vowell.
Awesome. I'll do it. So this is a shout out for all the teams who are no longer in the playoffs.
Go play intramurals, brother. Go play intramurals.
When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can seem intense. Like breakup R&B intense.
I thought you said you loved the sweater that I got you. If you didn't, you could have told me.
Geico makes it easy. Just go to Geico.com anytime to update or check your policy without all the extra drama.
I even had a gift